You think Mickey Mouse was born innocent, but in medieval Europe, mice were omens of plague, sin, and cosmic punishment. In ancient manuscripts, these rodents gnawed away not just grain, but the very foundations of order, and storytellers cast them as tricksters who humiliated kings and toppled empires. The sanitized mascot, you know, is a cover story. What darkness had to be erased before America's friendliest mouse could exist? The answer begins where the terror first took root. You step into a medieval scriptorium and you see rodents moving along the edges of sacred pages. In one illuminated bestiary, a cat pins a mouse beneath its claws, jaws poised, while a Latin gloss names the cat Musio enemy of mice, guardian against theft and spiritual decay. The mouse is drawn not as a companion, but as a thief of grain and as a desecrator of the Eucharist. One entry warns that if a mouse consumes the consecrated host, the priest must perform 40 days of penance. As prescribed by John Merck, the stakes were not just material. A mouse in the church was a crisis of the soul. In the Luttrell Psalter, rodents gnaw at ornate borders, tiny teeth erasing the line between order and chaos. Margins fill with grotesque scenes, mice armed for battle, mice overrunning cats, prey turning on predator, a visual world turned upside down. These were not idle doodles. For the scribe, every mouse that chewed at the edge of a page hinted at sin eating away at the fortress of faith. After the Black Death swept Europe, vermin became shorthand for plague and divine wrath. Municipal edicts ordered extermination, sermons thundered about vermin as punishment, and the image of the gnawing pest seeped from manuscript to memory. The idea of plague settled into collective imagination. To medieval eyes, a mouse was never just a nuisance. It was a warning corruption gnawing at the margins, a sign that the world's foundations were already beginning to rot. A mouse slips through the crack between worlds. In the oldest stories, it is never just a bystander. The mouse moves in silence, crossing boundaries that others cannot, between house and field, sacred and profane, life and death. Folklorists like Alan Dundes and Lewis Hyde describe this as the trickster's domain. The fox may wear the crown in beast epics, but the mouse is the saboteur in the walls, the thief in the grain, the silent witness to secrets meant to stay hidden. In Aesop's fable, the lion spares the mouse, only to be freed by its tiny teeth. The lesson is not just gratitude, it is the unsettling truth that the smallest creature can unravel the strongest bonds. In the 12th century tales of Reynard the Fox, the mouse's cousins slip in as courtroom jesters and legal loophole artists, exposing the folly of kings and priests. The medieval rat trial of Autumn, where a lawyer argued that the accused rats could not attend court for fear of the waiting cats, turns the law itself into a stage for rodent mischief. Here, the mouse is not an innocent. It is a master of disguise, a breaker of rules, a force that punishes arrogance without warning. In kitchens and crypts, in the margins of illuminated texts, the mouse gnaws at what should be safe. It is the agent of poetic justice, the one who remembers every broken promise, every hoarded crumb. Trickster tales remind you, the mouse's power lies not in strength, but in its ability to slip past the boundaries you trust to keep danger out. The world of order is never truly sealed. There's always something small, clever, and hungry waiting just beyond the edge. You stand at the edge of the Victorian fairground, laughter and shrieks mingling under striped tents. Inside, the puppet shows and automata are anything but safe. Punch and Judy, famous for their violence and chaos, draw crowds with slapstick that borders on the grotesque. Mr. Punch cracks his stick over the heads of policemen and devils, and animal intruders, cats and dogs, and sometimes a rat or mouse, burst from trapdoors, lunging at the audience or gnawing at Punch's wig. These vermin are not pets. They are punchlines and jump scares, props of discomfort. Fairground Press from the late 1800s recounts vermin puppets and clockwork mice skittering across tabletops, their jerky, unnatural movements both fascinating and deeply unsettling. By the 1890s, mechanical mice have become a novelty. Wind-up toys dart beneath gaslights, their tin bodies clattering across the floor, provoking screams and laughter in equal measure. In some vaudeville acts, automaton rodents race through the aisles or leap from the stage, blurring the line between performance and panic. Audiences love the spectacle, but there is always an edge of unease. The mouse on stage is a trespasser, a reminder that the boundaries between order and chaos can snap in an instant. Shadow theaters and silhouette shows take this further. In the flicker of lamplight, mice become monstrous, their tails and teeth exaggerated into living silhouettes. These are not bedtime stories. The rodent becomes a grotesque mask, a boundary crosser, a figure meant to unsettle. Early animation soon inherits this visual code. Black bodies, white faces, rubbery limbs, a performance that is never entirely innocent. The cheerful mouse of cartoons is built on the bones of something older, stranger, and much harder to laugh away. In 1926, a wooden toy mouse with a painted grin and a red circle on its chest was patented in Pennsylvania. The Performo Toy Company called it Mickey Mouse. By 1928, when Walt Disney and UB Iwerks faced the crisis of losing Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, that name and silhouette were already circulating in American shops and catalogs. Disney and Iwerks needed a new character fast, one that could be drawn quickly, recognized instantly, and sold to a public hungry for something cheerful. The mouse they conjured was modular, a ball head, round ears, thin limbs, a design that could be animated and merchandised with equal ease. But the design was not born innocent. When you look closely at early Mickey and Steamboat Willie and Plane Crazy, you see a black shadow with rubber hose arms and a mask-like white face. His eyes are pie-cut voids. His mouth stretches too wide. His body moves with a boneless, twitchy energy that echoes the jerky motion of clockwork mice and mechanical toys from the vaudeville era. It is a look borrowed from the grotesque, part performer, part puppet, never quite human, and never quite animal. The gloves arrive in 1929, first in the Opry House. Animation required clarity, and white gloves made the mouse's hands visible against his dark body. But gloves were more than a technical fix. They signaled the stage, echoing the costume of vaudeville clowns, minstrels, and mask performers. On stage, gloves meant the character was always acting, never fully real. In cartoons, the glove draws a boundary. The mouse is a performer, a mask, a figure whose touch is both inviting and forbidden. Each refinement, each deletion of sharpness, each addition of theatrical artifice helped erase the threat, sanding down the grotesque until only the marketable mask remained. Mickey's gloves are not just a sign of friendliness. They are the mark of a mouse who has been rewritten, his old dangers hidden beneath the costume. When you reach for the image of a smiling mascot, listen for the silence that replaced the other stories, the ones that were carved away to make that smile possible. By the late 1800s, the British and American publishing industries began an aggressive campaign to reshape the stories children read. Editors at houses like Frederick Warne and George Routledge combed through folk tales, cutting out violence, death, and anything that hinted at the grotesque. The mouse, once a shadowy figure of punishment and decay, was dressed in waistcoats and bonnets, transformed into a harmless guest at the nursery table. In 1904, Beatrix Potter's illustrated mice in The Tale of Two Bad Mice scurried through dollhouses, their mischief contained to broken teacups and stolen crumbs. The dangerous edge was gone. Victorian ideology demanded that childhood be a sanctuary, untouched by the old terrors. Publishers froze their animal characters in this state, stripping away ambiguity and dread. The result was a new kind of innocence, engineered, tightly controlled, and marketed as the natural state of the child's world. You discover that stories of the mouse as a punisher and boundary crosser never vanished. They retreated to the margins. In the 1930s, WPA fieldworkers recorded immigrant voices describing rodents as omens and as agents of justice. A Polish grandmother in Chicago warned that the mouse remembers what you hide in the cellar. In WPA transcripts, rats strip a miser's granary bare, grain by grain, until nothing remains but shame. These fragments lodged in family tale, warnings whispered in cramped tenements long after books and cartoons had turned the mouse into a friend. Decades later, the internet gave the shadow a new stage. In the 2010s, stories like SuicideMouse.avi and Abandoned by Disney transformed the cheerful mascot into an avatar of dread. It had empty eyes, it walked through static, the smile curdled into a threat. What was buried in folklore returns, repainted in digital horror. The mouse becomes the thing that gnaws from beneath, waiting for its moment to slip through the cracks. Even now, the icons you think you know can mask older fears, remnants of chaos hidden in plain sight. As culture keeps rewriting its monsters into mascots, the shadows beneath never fully disappear. What you choose to forget still shapes what you see. The palimpsest always leaves a trace beneath the paint.